Make sure to check out the video version of this podcast at youtube.com/gameofmicrophones. See everything you're missing. If you've been enjoying Game of Microphones during our coverage of the entire series, now is a great time to show your appreciation by considering making a donation to support the show. As an incentive for you to donate, all donations will be matched 3 times by one of our generous backers. Just go to paypal.me/GOMPodcast or patreon.com/GOMPodcast to support the show today. Thanks.
Be with me. Build the new world with me. This is our reason. It has been from the beginning, since you were a little boy with a bastard's name, and I was a little girl who couldn't count to 20. We do it together. We break the wheel together.
You are my queen. Now and always.
When you play the game of microphones, you win or you die. From within the House of Black and White, it's Sir Duncan and Lady Rachel.
Good morrow, sorrowful dragons and seekers of justice, and welcome to Game of Microphones. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, King in the East.
And I'm Lady Rachel of House Fox, Queen of the West.
And I'm Princess Sarah of House Von Daltrin, fangirl of Ghost.
Yes.
And this is episode 120. Welcome back to the show, Princess Sarah. Good to have you on.
I'm so excited that Rachel's here this time.
I know, right?
I'm so excited too. I'm glad you got to come on.
Yeah, it's awesome.
On this episode, we are covering the series finale of Game of Thrones, Season 8, Episode 6, The Iron Throne.
And in case you're not already aware, this is from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. That means you've seen the entire series. If not, there's still time to be stabbed in the heart by your love as you embrace and your body carried away beyond the skies by a dragon, so you don't have to hear these spoilers.
Warning. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Holy shit.
Damn Targaryens knocking down my shitty wall.
I saw that earlier.
Oh, I can't believe that the series is over. How you ladies feeling about that?
It's over, you guys.
Yeah.
It's not processed yet at all.
I know, right? Oh my God.
I think it'll process in 595 days when we're expecting another series or season to come out, and it just doesn't.
Oh, yeah, I think in about 595 days we'll have a new series, though. To look at the upside. Blood Moon, the working title.
The Bloody Moon.
For the long, yeah, Moon's Blood. Oh God, yeah. Poor choice of words, Batman. You know. Jeez, Moon's Blood.
I'm not sure about that. I would prefer a different title, HBO, please.
Totally. Okay, so oh my God, how do we even start this? We have a top 3.
I'm satisfied.
Yes,
I'm satisfied with this episode. I think, as confusing as maybe this season was for a lot of our fans and the fans of the show, I'm hoping that this tied it up as nicely as it could be tied up for everybody out there.
What did you think, Princess Sarah?
I completely agree. I'm very happy with what they left us with. They left us open to interpretation. They left us open for the future of what happens to the characters. I'm good.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really happy as well. I thought that they wrapped everything up really neatly, very nicely, very appropriately. It was crazy, like so many crazy things to break down. Who wants to start with your number 3?
I say Sarah start since she's our honored guest today.
Right. Putting you on the spot,
Yes.
Princess Sarah. What do you got?
Okay. So my number 3 is Tyrion finding out the demise of Cersei and Jaime.
Oh,
Ooh.
man. I know, it was so
And
sad.
that whole scene, which was beautiful, as sad as it was.
Totally.
Mhm. Very, very well performed by Peter Dinklage, I would say.
The way they approached it, I think, was perfect. Everything about it just seemed appropriate, not too brutal, not too, sappy. It was just like, I love the Rains of Castamere playing in the background. Everything just seemed, I just loved it.
I know.
That violin was stunning with that song.
It was actually,
Mm-hmm.
when it started out, the first couple notes of it were the notes that usually get played on piano in The Light of the Seven.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Dun, dun.
All right. I'm ready.
I noticed those started out the music this time on violin strings, the first time we've heard that progression. And then it went into the Rains of Castamere, which was, always good and fit this scene perfectly.
Even better. I like it better now.
This is my favorite score of Rains of Castamere by far in the entire series.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Something about that violin, I know I've talked about it before, but I have a major emotional response to the violin.
You've said that about the Stark theme before.
Yes, it's the actual physical instrument of the violin.
True.
I mean,
so it's even more effective, you're saying, with the Rains of Castamere. I gotcha.
Yeah,
that's badass.
Because it was new. But anytime I hear a violin playing, I get that same kind of emotional, like goosebumps and tears well into my eyes. I'm a freak. What can I say?
Hey, if you find something that hits you like that, it's a good thing,
It's good to know how you feel about music.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah. If I'm feeling sad, I'll just throw on some violin and I'll cry my bloody eyes out.
Work it out.
Yeah.
Well, and the way he played it with pulling the bricks apart, it was like a slow reveal, and we just sat there waiting. Like, I was just sitting there like, okay, when are we going to see their faces?
Yeah.
When are we going to see what happened? And they were just coddling each other, and I just felt like it was pretty beautiful.
It was really beautiful. And the way that the
lighting.
Yeah, the lighting was, the way he sees like the golden hand gleaming, sticking out of the rubble. And it's like, oh, fuck. And then you can see he removes one stone and you can see there's an arm attached to it. And I was like, no. Oh, man. So sad.
They seemed pretty intact, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were really intact.
That's true.
Really intact, for sure. I guess that's the effect they wanted to go with. They didn't want to have a bunch of mangled up corpses, like brains splattered out everywhere and stuff.
Oh, because that's what I would kind of imagine.
I'm glad they gave us that, though. That felt
Me
like a
too.
little bit of closure.
True.
I totally agree.
That whole scene, just the way that he performed it too was so special, and the way he hit the brick down, and he was just so upset.
I think was it Johnny Stitches was saying, "Smash him, smash him." When he was
Smash the Beatles.
Yeah, his wife was like, "Really, right now?" It's hilarious. Why don't we start at the beginning of the scene and talk about it from there? When Tyrion starts walking through the ashes of the burnt city.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So this episode starts out much like the episode after the loot train battle, right? With Tyrion walking through the rubble. So you could say that that was a foreshadow of this, you know, and his trepidation and his nervousness that was all over his face after the loot train battle, like something doesn't feel right, you know, walking through that field of ash and just roasted corpses and horses and carts and everything like that. So he's basically reliving that here. And instead of Lannister troops out on the road this time, it's Lannister troops and civilians and, you know, young children and mothers and holding their babes scorched in the streets of King's Landing.
Did you see the horse this time, Duncan, in the little girl's hands?
No, I missed it again.
No.
Yeah, I'm an idiot, I guess. That's so funny.
It was the same mom and daughter couple that Arya tried to save, and Tyrion
that's where he stopped and looked at him. I
noticed the horses.
I saw that it was that mom and daughter again and everything. I just missed the horse somehow.
They like zoom right in on it.
I guess I was looking at everything else. So yeah,
okay.
Speaking of the loot train thanks. Speaking of the loot train battle, Brienne called it the Battle of the Gold Road.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, in her
note,
her white page or white book page for Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of interesting. So yeah, he's walking through the streets. Some guy with a burnt up back stumbles past, and he looks backward, and we see that Jon and Davos are following him into the city. And this is when that
was an intense moment. Hit that like burned guy walking.
Yeah,
he was just like in shock. I mean, he wasn't even in pain. It didn't look like he was just wandering.
Totally shell-shocked, just stumbling along.
Well, that reminded me, like Rachel, you were talking about how it was reminiscent of like 9/11, where it was just everyone was just shocked about everything that just happened and
kind of wandering around afterwards,
covered in dust.
And ash.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Don't even know how to process what just happened.
Right, and the ash falling was evocative of the scene at Pompeii after Vesuvius exploded and all the bodies were buried in ash, like we talked about before. So again, it just impactful. And now we've seen that the Iron Throne, as we witnessed in Dany's vision, we weren't sure if it was going to be ash or snow, but it seems like it's ash.
You called it though, Duncan. You thought it was ash.
Yeah, you kept leading toward it.
Yeah, like it had to be, you know? I mean, winter was sure to hit the lower of the Seven Kingdoms, but I figured with all the destruction of the throne room, that was probably ash. So Tyrion decides that he's going to go to the Red Keep to try to find Jaime and Cersei, or to see if they escaped. And Jon is just trying to send some people with him to help him out because it's fucking dangerous. They don't know what's out there, basically, right? But Tyrion's like, I'm going alone and won't accept any help. And they're both just looking really defeated as he walks off alone, like looking like the burnt guy, just kind of stumbling along in a daze, sort of. And so he passes some familiar sights, like that room where the bell tower collapsed and the bell got jammed against the wall, where Arya was hiding, where she linked up with that mother and daughter for the second or third time. And he makes his way to the Red Keep, and he's walking through the Cersei's map room, which is just trashed and there's stuff all over everywhere. And I'm surprised that any of this is still intact after the madness of last week.
The way it looked, it was heartbreaking. It was sort of like significant of how the whole series is ending. Like these things that are so familiar to us, everything is smashing and falling apart.
Yeah, good point.
the way certain parts of the castle were intact and certain parts were just completely decimated, and there wasn't really like much of a rhyme or reason for it. And the map, I loved that there was a split down the map, like it cracked, and we get at the end of this series, I'll say, not this episode.
Oh, the splitting of the Seven Kingdoms.
That they split.
The North.
So it's the North is independent, and so
good call.
It was just a symbolic splitting of the Seven Kingdoms for me personally.
Cool. I like that.
Nice.
Yeah, great interpretation. So Tyrion's walking through, and there's through this whole sequence as he's in the Red Keep in the upper area, it's pretty much silent. Like you can't even hear his footsteps, basically. And he's just going through this destroyed area, and eventually he walks up and picks up a torch. And it's at that scene where we start getting a little sound back in. And he decides to head down the stairs. And he approaches this arched entryway to the chambers beneath where the dragon skulls are and where Cersei and Jaime were when the collapse occurred. And the rubble is stacked so high that he has to climb up and pull a few stones away to squeeze through to the other side. Ballsy. Like, this whole area is so unstable potentially. Like, just the fact that he's willing to...
I wouldn't be going down there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, it's kind of crazy. So he crawls through, and he is now in this arched chamber area where they were crushed. And it's interesting. He takes a second and pauses to look at the skull of Balerion the Dread and reflect. And I just have to guess that he's imagining just how huge Balerion would have been, dwarfing Drogon, and just how much damage he could have done. You know, it's no wonder that everyone either bent the knee to Aegon or burned. And now it's like the second coming of Aegon as he's witnessed the horror of Drogon destroying King's Landing. So I thought that was just a poignant, tiny moment that may have gone unnoticed, where he is sitting there just looking at Balerion's skull. Pretty intense. And this is when he spots the golden hand and the music kicks in and everything. And it's just so sad. Like you said, they died embracing, and they're just together. They entered the world together, and now they're like in another like stone womb of the bowels of the Red Keep.
That's exactly what it looked like. Exactly what it looked like.
Right?
Looked like them in the womb.
Twins in another womb. Yeah. So crazy.
Oh. Yeah.
And super emotional scene, really well orchestrated, and Dinklage's performances were just off the charts, like as he starts like whimpering and wailing and smashing the stones.
He better win an award for this.
For something. Like these past two episodes, he's had such great performances. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been amazing. I feel like, honestly, this whole season, but like you said, Duncan, the past two episodes, he's had some really, really solid acting scenes.
Mm-hmm. Like when he said goodbye to Jaime. I guess that was...
Oh, yeah. That was last episode.
That was last episode? I'm losing track. Yeah. Oh, man. Crazy. So...
Well, it feels so honest. Like, it doesn't feel acted at all. It just feels like these two people, like, as actors, are even saying goodbye to each other through the script.
Right, yeah.
And I love that.
So it must just help the actor when it's like the end of everything, and you really are going to like stop seeing these people as much, and things like that. Pretty crazy.
It has to be emotional for them on a personal level to be ending, whether or not that was their last scene that they ever shot together, because I know that they don't shoot them in sequence.
Right, just knowing you're getting there.
But yeah, knowing that this is the end of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they love these characters. They're saying goodbye to these characters one page at a time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
yeah,
I'm sure it's so fast for them already.
Definitely. Is anything else you guys want to add about your number 5, Princess Sarah? Or number 3, sorry.
Number 3? No, I think that was it. I just think it was beautifully done. And I'm so glad that they gave us a little bit of closure by seeing Jaime and Cersei. Like, we know that they're dead.
Yeah.
They're officially dead, you guys. They could be alive.
And they can have an open casket funeral, with the quality of their bodies.
Cersei didn't look
even
too
though
bad.
they got buried alive.
Yeah. By falling stone. Yeah. It's a miracle. So, yeah. Okay. Rachel, how about your number 3?
Let's see. Oh, my number 3 is the Starks say goodbye to the Targaryen.
Oh, man. All right.
They send Jon up to the wall. So my number 3 actually starts where Jon is kind of walking with the Night's Watch, and he meets them, and they have their hoods up. And I think he has not seen a Night's Watchman since, aside from Dolorous Ed.
Yeah, at the Battle of Winterfell, right.
But like just other brothers of the Night's Watch.
I wonder if he knew these two from Castle Black, if they're like,
I don't know.
Welcome back, Lord Commander.
That way.
Yeah, it didn't seem that way
but
to me either.
I loved seeing Jon back in his kind of black gear. And so he walks in front of them and they're walking behind him, and he comes up to the boat, and he passes Grey Worm, and they kind of exchange glances.
Ooh,
and
he's so mad
the
still.
Music, the music kind of turns ominous for like half a second. And I think one of Grey Worm's, soldiers goes up to him and says, all of us or everyone has boarded the boat. And I thought to myself, like, oh my God, like, what if they're going to try to like assassinate Jon on the way up to the wall?
I had the same thought right off the bat, like,
That's
oh my
exactly
God.
What I thought.
I was like, oh no,
Honestly.
like, oh my God. But then we find out that they're sailing to the island of Noth.
To Noth.
And I loved that they're going there. And so Jon kind of turns the corner and sees his cousin siblings.
Hey, it's better than Joffrey with his uncle daddy.
That's
True.
true. That's so true. I think what Tyrion said is like, no one's very happy about sending you to the wall, which I guess is like the best
means it's a good compromise when no parties are happy.
So Sansa genuinely is like, I wish that there was another way, and please forgive me. And Jon is like, girl, the North is free thanks to you. Like, you freed the North doing what you did. And I love that she gives him the respect that he's due here. It's like, but they lost their king.
Yeah.
And I found that very weighted for this ending of the series, because he wasn't just the king in the North. He should have been the king of the 7 kingdoms.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they lost their king. Like, everybody kind of lost the king at that point.
Yeah, like she didn't specify the Northmen,
Yeah, so I thought that was very weighted and, ambiguous, if you will. Like, you could have interpreted a few different ways.
Jon was looking very sullen as he exited the keep as well, exited the dungeons. Like, as he comes walking down the stairs, it's playing the Jon and Dany theme, sadly, showing that he's...
I noticed that.
Yeah, he's still carrying it with him every step. I think it's like really weighing on him as he's struggling to cope with, duty being the death of love, as Tyrion so poignantly said. But and
he says, did I do the right thing?
Yeah.
It was what I did right?
Exactly. It's so rough, man. Really rough. So the first like kind of smile that we get to see from him is when he says the North is free thanks to you, and like he sort of has a big smile at that moment, and it shows you that he's not fully broken. There's still hope for him, which is nice.
And I think he's really proud of Sansa because she's really stuck to her guns. And I mean, like, I know you and me, Duncan, we've kind of maybe unfairly bashed Sansa a little bit this season for being so stubborn, and she was trusting her gut, and her gut ended up being right.
Right. And she wants freedom, that's what we all want. So you got to be able to understand that perspective as well.
Yeah. So I love when Jon says to her, Ned Stark's daughter will speak for them. Like, he doesn't say father, he doesn't say your father, he says Ned Stark's daughter.
Right, it almost wouldn't be right for Jon to be king in the North. Because he's a Targaryen, not a Stark. You know what I mean? Like, it makes sense to have a Stark ruler.
Blood.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But no, you're right. He's a Targaryen by, the father's side.
By right.
So that's why I loved that other line that, they lost their king. It's like 7 kingdoms lost their king here.
Yeah, definitely.
And, I just love their big hug goodbye. I love Sansa's outfit here. I mean, talk about bondage. Oh my God.
I'll have to look again at hers. I noticed Arya had a really cool outfit.
They both did, for sure.
Yeah. Sansa's dress, though, was pretty incredible. It was like leather straps on top of leather straps, and her figure, and she's so tall, and she
her hair just looked so red, and just so like everything was amplified.
Yeah, her skin very white.
Gosh.
Yeah,
perfect.
she's so beautiful.
Like, I want to be her for Halloween.
Right? Maybe we can like get red wigs and rock it out together.
I'm in. I'm totally in.
You guys can do that. I'll, do something else.
You can be somebody else. Who could you be?
I'll have to be the Joker again because I spent way too much money on my Joker outfit. It's got to get used more. Or Darth Vader. I spent a good amount on that too.
You could be the bird guy that walks through King's Landing.
Oh, I think you said the bird guy. The bird is the bird. The bird guy. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Kind of funny. So then they say their goodbye, and then he pans over to Arya. And as you guys were talking about, like, the characters saying goodbye to each other, I think Maisie Williams, those were like real life tears.
Yeah.
You have your needle?
Right here. I wrote the same thing down. I was like, those are not acting tears. That was her.
Those are real tears.
I mean, they were bloodshot. Everything.
Yes, yes. And they just embrace each other.
You can come see me, at Castle Black.
Can't.
Ain't gonna be there.
Yeah. He's like, you killed the Night King. You think anyone's gonna tell you that women aren't allowed?
She drops kind of this major bomb on him, like, well, I'm not going north.
Sansa too, she didn't know. She's like, where are you going?
Where are you going?
Where are you going?
And I love this. What's west of Westeros?
Yeah, it's not the first time she's asked that, right?
No. Duncan, help me remember. Who did she say that to the first time? I was trying to remember. Was it Jaqen H'ghar?
Maybe the playwright, the woman, the actress. Was it her?
Oh, maybe. What's her face? The one that gets her neck split open by the way.
Yeah.
Lady
Crane.
Lady Crane.
I think it was Lady Crane.
Where will you go? Essos is east and Westeros is west. But what's west of Westeros?
I don't know.
Nobody does. It's where all the maps stop.
The edge of the world, maybe.
I'd like to see that.
That makes sense.
Talking about, because she's like, what's west of Westeros? I want to sail west. And she's like, just travel with us and come join the play. But this is cool, though, because, I mean, ever since Arya was a child, I mean, what did she name her direwolf?
Nymeria.
Right. And Nymeria was a character in history that she looked up to. Nymeria, the ancient princess of the Rhoyne, who left and sailed west with a giant host of people and landed at Dorne and founded the royal Dornish family. Yeah. So this figure that Arya has idolized basically did this, sailed west, set up shop in a new continent and founded a royal family. Like, I could see Arya, aside from founding a royal family, potentially doing the same thing. Like, it's just so cool that this is something that she's always dreamed of doing, basically, and now she has the means and the opportunity and the time to see it happen. So people, I'm sure, were like, what the hell is she talking about? Unless they were like,
I love that.
Yeah,
I already liked it, but now I love it so much more.
Oh, now that you know the Nymeria thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I also thought it was great, like, full circle for her character, because as like a kid, she was always like exploring and getting lost. Like, she got lost down in the catacombs of King's Landing and chasing cats and finding her way outside the city and having to get back in and traveling to Bravos. And she's been the most like exploratory of the Stark children. So
for sure,
I thought it was an extremely fitting ending for her.
Definitely.
And she always went against the grain. She always wanted to do
her own
what
thing.
Everyone else wasn't doing.
And that's what Nymeria the wolf did too. She went and did her own thing, and now just like Nymeria did, Arya's leaving to go do her own thing.
Yes, Arya.
Definitely. And so John asks her, "You have your needle?" And that's when the tears start
oh my gosh,
pouring out of her eyes.
I could tear right now thinking about it. 'Cause she did it so well.
Yeah, that was a great performance. I really think they did some great justice to all these characters with their parting farewells and everything like this. Like, I'm satisfied with this.
Me too. I really am. I mean, I felt conflicted last night because I loved it so much, but I was so sad when it was over,
right?
Because it's over forever. And I just wanted to watch it again, but I had told you about my day, Duncan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had flown back in from Las Vegas, hence my hoarse voice. I'm so sorry if I sound a little different today, you guys, but I ended up having to watch it again on my lunch break today because I just didn't have it in me to watch it again and get all those emotions again last night.
It was not an easy feat to rewatch this episode. It was like I had to prepare myself as well.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
I'm very happy that last night, I thought I was going to be like more upset that it's over, that everything is ended. I thought I was going to be more upset about it. I thought I was going to have to call that like Skype number to
Game
do
of
therapy
phones.
or whatever. But I was so comfortable with what happened that I was almost strangely okay. Like I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm good.
You managed to reach that place of serenity where like you felt like everything was where it needed to be.
It made sense to me.
That's awesome.
I couldn't agree more, Sarah. You hit it right on the head with that. It's like they tied up enough, but they left enough loose ends to not make it feel perfect. And I loved that. Like, we don't see what happens to Drogon. We didn't even hear, in the meeting with the hand, like Bronn cuts it off. Like he's as far away as possible.
Because he has kind of beef with Drogon. Drogon is not a Bronn fan. So the farther away the Drogon is, the better for Lord Bronn of High Garden, Lord Protector of the Reach.
So we get Arya and Jon's final hug goodbye, and Jon's face, he has to take like this, to let her go. Like he has to release the energy to let her go because their relationship was just so special. I know it's more
in the books.
Yeah, developed in the books, but we get it enough in the show to realize that they were bonded. Right.
Like it was learning of Jon being at Winterfell that made Arya turn away from trying to kill Cersei after having killed Walder Frey and return to Winterfell in the first place. And he gave her that special gift. Yeah. He gave her needle, and he didn't give any of his other siblings anything. Right. And we know there's a special bond between those two. And did you notice what she said too when Sansa says, she says, "What's west of Westeros?" And someone, maybe Jon says, "I don't know." And she says, "No one knows. No one."
Oh, maybe she knows.
Maybe she knows.
Maybe she knows.
Maybe she has some kind of idea from the House of Black and White.
And that's why it's a great ending. It's leaving it open to interpretation.
Right.
We can still talk about it and kind of decide in our own heads what happens next.
Right.
That's what I like.
Yeah, it's so good. And like
totally.
Maybe no one knows, like the Faceless Men know, or maybe no one actually knows, but soon no one will know. You know what I mean? Because she's no one.
Because she is no one.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was really
cool. He goes over to Bran and kneels in front of him. Your Grace.
And he holds his gaze down, averted from Bran for a good couple seconds before looking up at him.
He's showing the respect because I think he's making that clear definition because Bran knows that he, from a lineage perspective, he's the rightful heir to the throne. And so I think Jon is making it absolutely clear to Bran that I respect this decision, that you will make a good just ruler.
Yeah, it's like if you're at a pull up to a stop sign and there's a cop watching, you stop for 3 full seconds before you continue to drive. Here, it's like John wants to make sure that Bran, the cop, knows that he's not going to be pulling any shifty, throne usurping stuff. So he shows the proper deference for 3 seconds, holding his eyes down, his gaze averted.
That's awesome. That's hilarious.
Classic.
So I was wondering what he meant, and maybe I'm just totally missing something. He said, "I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me." And I was trying to was he talking about when he was really little and was left for the night's watch, or was he talking about
when he was
something
fighting
recent?
the Syrian, maybe?
Oh God, it could be so many things. It could be that he wasn't there to protect him from Jaime. It could be that he wasn't there in the garden or in the Godswood when the Night King was about to kill him. It could be a whole number of things, but I loved Bran's response here. You were exactly where you were supposed to be, and it's like he did everything that he was supposed to do. He was there with Viserion distracting him so Arya could get past and kill the Night King.
That's what I was thinking that he was talking about.
Probably. I mean, that would make perfect sense. And that sort of gives credence to our, theory that he was, he distracting Viserion so Arya could get past. Because, I mean, there's no reason Jon wouldn't be climbing with him to be protecting him when, when Jaime pushed him. I guess he could be referring to, he could have been at Winterfell when Theon, pulled the wool out from underneath Bran and took over the castle and he had to escape. But I mean,
well, that's why we have to do a rewatch. We're going to figure all this out.
But I mean,
again, though, to Sarah's point, though, it's open ended.
Yeah,
and I love that. We can speculate,
we can theorize, and that's the best part about this. The whole time has been theorizing and trying to interpret and everything. But think about it too. Bran had the chance to intercede at one point and reach out to Jon at Craster's Keep, and Jon could have been there to protect him from that point out. But it was Bran's decision to let Jon go and to go north further beyond the wall himself alone. Mm-hmm. So it's like, Bran had the opportunity to have Jon as a protector throughout at least part of his journey, and he chose to go it alone himself. So he doesn't have any grievances against Jon or against Jaime or against anybody, which is, it's everybody did exactly what they needed to do for things to pan out with him on the throne, which has been his goal apparently the whole series.
Yeah,
I'm joking.
Yeah,
joking, but I mean, apparently that's what his destiny is, right? Like the three-eyed raven was waiting 1,000 years.
As far as we know from what he. But that's the hard part: is do we know that he knew, or do we know that he just put pieces? I don't know.
Well, who knows? But we know that him being the leader, since he didn't kill the Night King, and since he didn't have any major thing that he did before this that would justify why he was so important to the three-eyed raven, I'm guessing that him being Bran the Broken, first of his name, is his major reason for being so important, that he's gonna usher in a era of peace in Westeros or something like that. Who knows?
But yeah, that was my number 3. So Duncan, what is your number 3?
Oh, my number 3. It's a terrible thing, I'm asking. It's also the right thing.
So good.
Oh, man, this was just such an amazing scene between Tyrion and Jon here after Dany's big speech that she gives to the Dothraki and Unsullied forces. And she walks away. We'll talk about that in a little bit, I guess. But Dany goes walking off and Jon goes to see Tyrion, apparently. It seems like immediately almost. Mm. And he had just had this conversation with Arya, which sort of put him on edge. And I think he needed to talk to Tyrion to get Tyrion's opinion as well, it seemed like to me. So he goes to visit Tyrion in his cell. And just the fact that he was allowed to do this at all tells me that in Dany's mind, nothing has changed. It's like she doesn't realize that she's become a monster all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like the Mad King, the more that he burned his enemies, the more righteous he felt and the more he felt right. And I feel like Dany has been blinded to what she's become. And if she, really understood what she did and how other people may have perceived it, there's no way that she'd be letting her higher ups in her organization go and meet with somebody who's like an open traitor and have their thoughts tainted against her potentially. You know what I mean?
That was like that was almost on my list, was like Danny's denial.
Yeah,
she's in total denial, straight up denial.
Half like just madness.
Yeah, it's just like
and
oblivious.
And that's a terrible combination.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy. I agree.
She's delusional.
Yeah.
Is what she is.
Really is.
I mean,
talking to John. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, in the throne room.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just saying, I know it's not we're talking about Tyrion, but when she was talking to John, that was a whole nother situation where it was like just denial.
Yeah,
like she had to tell herself that she was doing right. It was, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's my number 2, actually.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, it's crazy. She doesn't seem to get it and realize the way that people could perceive it. She's just like, this is just what I had to do, you know? And so he gets in there with Tyrion. And of course, the first thing Tyrion asks is if he brought any wine, because Tyrion is a person who drinks.
I am a person who drinks.
And he needs his wine, you know.
I love that.
Every time he's imprisoned, he's always asking for wine.
Who are you?
Your captor.
Do you have wine?
No.
Did you bring any wine?
No.
So, when's the last time we saw Tyrion drink some wine, man?
Yeah, I guess at the party.
At the time before the Winterfell battle, I think.
After the battle, after the battle, yeah.
Oh, and after the battle too, he was drinking.
Their drinking game. So he's at least, you know, thankful that Jon came to visit him, and it's like this is like just something that there must have just been this force just dragging Jon, just telling him like, you need to talk to Tyrion, you need to talk to Tyrion, because he doesn't want to betray Dany, but he's still there, and he knows that going to talk to Tyrion is going to make him change his mind about Dany. It's like the way that Stannis, when Davos was prisoner after having gone to execute Melisandre, and they have Gendry in custody, Stannis goes to Davos because he knows Davos will convince him not to kill Gendry, right? And just to take some blood with leeches, which is what they ended up doing, right? But I feel like Jon is doing the same thing here, except it's the opposite.
Because he knows it's wrong.
Yeah,
he knows something's wrong.
Yeah, and he knows that like Tyrion is going to convince him to do the right thing, which it's like love versus duty. He loves Tyrion. He loves Dany, but his duty is telling him like he needs to stop her, you know. And Tyrion, he knows Tyrion will push him in the right direction. I feel like so. Interesting parallel between Jon and Stannis there, which is kind of cool.
Definitely.
Well done, yeah.
I just thought of that right now on the spot too. So
it's true.
Tyrion's like, oh, you know, like this is not good. Like our queen doesn't keep prisoners for long. In other words, I'm going to be executed soon. But he remarks that there may be some kind of crude justice hidden in this because he betrayed his closest friend, Varys, and watched him burn. And I love the delivery of this line.
Now Varys's ashes can tell my ashes. See, I told you.
You know, so good. And he has an epiphany. He realizes Jon is the only person alive who has been dead before. And he asks him, like, you know, is there life after death? Just point blank asks him. And you can tell that Jon is traumatized as he's reminded of dying, of the fact that he's died, because it shows Jon as Tyrion says it, and he sort of like, you know, like exhales and sighs and like cringes a little bit. You can tell he's traumatized by that experience. And so he divulges, just like he did to the Red Woman, that there's nothing, you know, not that he's seen. It's so sad to see Tyrion. He feels like such a failure and so worthless that he doesn't even feel like he deserves, you know, a heaven. He says oblivion is the best I could hope for. And we see that this is really the way he feels as he tells Bran the Broken later on that he doesn't deserve to be Hand of the King. So Tyrion is kind of a broken man at this point. I think the death of Jaime really hurt him. And I think also that, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about it, but it was the fact that Tyrion told Jaime to try to escape with Cersei through the tunnels that resulted
so maybe
in
he
their
feels
death.
a little guilt.
Yeah, I mean, if they had still been
yeah.
upstairs, they may have been taken prisoner, held for trial. But the fact that they were down in that room at that exact moment, standing in that exact place, because not the whole room got filled with rubble. It was the fact that Tyrion told them to go down there.
That one tunnel.
Yeah.
That one place.
Yeah. So
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's feeling some type of guilt, like I was the one who told them to be there, you know, which is super sad because he already feels guilt over like the death of his mother and his father, you know, and the children. And
yeah, like he killed all of them now at this point.
He's killed more Lannisters than any man living. Times 2.
I am the greatest Lannister killer of our time.
So I should welcome you into my service because you murdered members of your own family.
Into your service? Your Grace, we have only just met. It's too soon to know if you deserve my service.
Yeah, so that was pretty rough when I was rewatching and realizing that he may be feeling guilt directly for the deaths of Jaime and Cersei.
Call. I didn't even think about that.
Sucks.
I like that.
You like that? You're twisted, Rachel.
No, I like that thought.
She likes that you made that connection.
Yes. I don't like that he feels guilty. Come on, give me some credit.
No, I'm just messing with you. I'm the playful antagonist when I can be.
Yes, you are.
So he's like, Tyrion is just running himself through the ringer here. He's like, oblivion is the best I could hope for. I strangled my lover. I shot my own father with a crossbow. I betrayed my queen. And when he says that, is he referring to telling Varys the truth? Is that his betrayal?
So. That's how I took it.
And also, I guess, letting Jaime free. Two betrayals in a very short period of time. And Jon tries to console him. You didn't, you know, but he's like, I did. And I'd do it again now that I've seen what I've seen, which is fucked, you know, like he would have been the one trying to poison Dany, you know, for sure. And he's like, I chose my fate. The people of King's Landing did not, you know, and it's just so fucked up. Like, Dany tells Jon in the next scene. It's very poignant, her line, because Tyrion says, I chose my fate. The people of King's Landing did not. And then in the next scene, Jon's like, you think you know what's good? I think I know what's good. But what about the people who think they all know what's good? And Dany tells him they don't get to choose. You know, and that's exactly what Tyrion says here. The people of King's Landing didn't get to choose their fate. And I think that Jon is, you know, when Dany says that, it just solidifies to him like they need to be able to choose, you know. It probably reminded him of Tyrion pointing this out to him here.
I chose my fate. The people of King's Landing did not.
What about everyone else? All the other people who think they know what's good.
They don't get to choose.
Well, you get a lot of Jon denial, too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, Dany was in denial. Jon is in complete denial.
Complete denial.
Totally.
Although Tyrion brings him around and, like, just like he, you know, subconsciously expected him to do, puts him back on the right path, like Theon said, you know. So he's saying that, you know, Jon is like, doesn't even try to deny it. He's like, I can't justify what happened. I won't try. But the war's over now, you know, and clearly Jon doesn't speak High Valyrian.
Did you hear what she was saying to her soldiers?
That she's going to liberate the people at Winterfell, from Winterfell to Dorne, specifically Winterfell.
Did you notice that she was saying that she liberated the people from King's Landing?
Yeah.
Is liberating killing them in her mind?
Like, I guess they were
it that way.
In death, they were released from the bondage of Cersei's tyranny.
A tyrant.
That's what I took it as, is
horrifying.
Like, she's going to basically kill everybody.
Right. I think
to
that
liberate
the line is intentionally blurred. You know, as Tyrion says, she liberated the people of Slaver's Bay, which is true. But then she also liberated, quote unquote, the people of King's Landing, and she'll go on liberating until the people of the world are all free and she rules them all. You know,
she thinks she's doing the right thing.
Substituting liberated for kill,
for
murder,
slaughter,
die.
as Tyrion tells her. Yeah, it's so insane.
She was justifying it in her own mind because she's flown off the handle and is fucking delusional. I mean, she had no remorse this episode.
But there would be no end to what she wants.
Right. Yeah.
Even if she had the throne, even if she had everything, it's a means to no end.
Endless conquest. It's like the war on terror or like the war on drugs. It's just not something that can end. It's designed to go on forever and to, basically.
She's bloodthirsty right now. Right. She just wants to continue this war path.
Totally.
And the way that Emilia Clarke played it too was perfect. Like the look in her eyes,
just like
the way
mad
that she
on power,
delivered the lines,
drunk on power.
Yep.
It's difficult for people to see what they can't see, or whatever she said. It's like, what are you talking about?
Right, a future, like, yeah,
totally.
She's so like wrapped in madness. It's difficult to see a future that hasn't been yet. You can only imagine it. She's like crazed talking to Jon.
John's like, what?
Yeah, we'll get
what
there.
What are you talking about?
I know, sorry.
Oh, it's all good. So, he points out, when you heard her talking to her soldiers, did she sound like someone who's done fighting? And it's like, no, she did not. She sounded straight up like Hitler, or like General Hux. We'll get to that. Sorry, now I'm getting out of myself too. So Jon's like, and you've been by her side, counseling her until today. And Tyrion's like, yep, and until today. And this made me think of that famous interaction between Syrio Forel and Arya back in King's Landing also, when he says to her, what do we say to the god of death?
Not today.
Not today. So in a way, as Dany has slaughtered 1 million innocent people at King's Landing, she's sort of become a goddess of death herself, right? And once that's the case, you got to tell her, not today, bitch, I quit, So I thought that was kind of funny. It just made me think of that. Tyrion's telling the goddess of death, not today, when he throws that pin of the hand down the stairs. So
that's true.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, Varys was right. I was wrong. It was vanity to think I could guide her. I'm like, damn, that's some good self-actualization right there. It was vanity, thinking that you could control or manipulate someone who has dragons, who's like convinced that they're born to rule. It's like the way that it parallels when, his father was her father's hand, and Tywin thought that he could sort of manipulate Aerys in a similar way, to the point where he thought he could influence who his son would marry by trying to pawn him off to Cersei, trying to hook them up. And Aerys was like, nope, like, you're not controlling me, basically. Like, you need to learn your place, and made Jaime part of the Kingsguard to make his point. So there's parallels there with Tywin and Tyrion both feeling like they could have more of an influence than they were capable of on their Targaryen king and queen. Funny how history repeats itself,
Funny old life.
I like that.
That's good. Makes sense.
Just thought of that on the spot too.
You're just thinking about it on the spot today, aren't you?
Apparently.
Hello.
Yeah, I mean, there's, it's the series finale. There's got to be 1 million things that connect with other parts of the series, right? That's like the whole point of this, is to have every payoff, and all of these things are paying off in ways that make sense. And anybody who wants to say otherwise, I will debate you. Basically.
We will do it all day.
Yeah.
He will do it in a duel.
Yeah, I'll challenge you to a duel. File, sir.
A trial by combat.
I choose Tyrion.
I have these swords surrounding me, so consider it carefully if you want a trial by combat.
I would choose Bronn still to this day. Trial by combat.
Oh,
Bronn.
yeah, totally. Yeah, if you have Bronn as an option, it's hard to not pick Bronn. So talking about Tywin, Tyrion brings him up. He's like talking. He's like, listen, our queen's nature, Dany's nature, is fire and blood. And Jon argues like, well, then, if that's the case, like if our words are stamped on our bodies when we're born, then I would be too, right? But but she's not the Mad King, no more than you're Tywin, your father. And Tyrion's like, my father was an evil man, my sister was an evil woman, but it puts it in perspective. Pile up all the bodies in their wake, all the people they've ever killed, there still won't be a fraction of as many as...
Isn't that a horrible thought to think about?
Yeah.
I love that, though.
As our beautiful queen slaughtered in a single day. Horrifying thought, like you were saying, Rachel. What did you say, Sarah?
I love that, though. It put it into like the perfect amount of perspective.
Yeah, it crystallizes it like perfectly. Yeah.
This is what she did. For any people who are saying,
right,
you know, she didn't go fully mad. I don't know.
Yeah.
We've heard so many things, but
she's
it's like,
not her father. It's like, oh yeah, tally up all the men that the Mad King killed, and I'm sure that what the amount of people that she killed just in that single day dwarfed that as well.
Or that he wanted to kill.
Right? Yeah. He all of his designs, he wasn't capable of killing as many people as Danny killed in a single day, couple hours, you know, on that day, which is crazy. This is when John starts having his denial. Cersei left her no choice. Bullshit, dude. Like, you are trying to just rationalize this. Like, the bells were ringing. They had given up and surrendered. She didn't have to do what she did. Like, that's nonsense.
Not at
you
all.
can see it all over his face, too.
Right, he knows it.
Like,
he knows it.
He closes his eyes. I love when Jon Snow closes his eyes. He, like, closes them, like, extra tight.
Yeah, it's so true. He does it so many times too. It's great. And so, you know, Tyrion's like, that's bullshit, dude. The moment the gates fell, the battle was over. You know it. And he's still trying to rationalize it. She saw her friend beheaded. She saw her dragon shot out of the sky. And Tyrion's like, and she's killed 1 million innocent people for payback. They had nothing to do with it, man. You know, and John's like, it's easy to judge when you're standing far from the battlefield. So Tyrion's like, okay, well, you were right in the middle of the battlefield. Would you have done it?
I love that he calls his bluff on this.
Yeah, and John's like taken aback. What? He's like, you've been up there on a dragon's back. You've had that power. Would you have burned the city down? And John's like, I don't know. And Tyrion's like,
I know nothing.
Yeah. And Tyrion scoffs. He's like, yes, you do. You damn well know, you know, and it's true. And Jon knows it's true. And he does know it, you know, and he's like, you won't say it because you don't want to betray her, but you know. And there's a very, very slight nod here by Jon. You can see just an ounce of a nod. He like, his chin just drops ever so slightly. Like he's acknowledging to Tyrion, like, you're right, I do know. But he's doing it so slightly that the guards can't tell. You know what I mean? Like Bran, he's got the po-po watching him at the stop sign here. So he's got to act kind of carefully.
You won't say because you don't want to betray her. But you know.
Acknowledging that Tyrion's right, that he knows that he would not have done it. And he's like, well, what does it matter what I do anyway, you know? And Tyrion's like, dude, you're Aegon Targaryen. It matters more than anything what you, of all people, do at this moment, you know? And it's so true. Like, you're the rightful king. If anybody can do something, it's you, man. Like, it does matter.
You're pretty much the only one at this point.
Right. Ned.
That can.
Yeah. Ned Stark sacrificed so much to save you. And it's all led to this moment. You know, this is the moment where you have your opportunity to use your blood right to end the horrible oppression that's been inflicted on the Seven Kingdoms by your family repeatedly. And Jon, being a Targaryen, but being raised as a Stark, has the unique capability to see his family from an outside perspective and to see how the Targaryens must be stopped. And in that way, it sort of reminds me of Aegon V, the Egg from the Duncan Egg novellas, who grows up essentially as a squire to a hedge knight, not with all the pomp and circumstance, like the pomp of the royal
Well, he was traveling with Dunk.
Yeah, he was traveling with Dunk for most of his childhood, growing up with the people, a low, like growing up as like a low
tournaments, being a squire.
Yeah, so Jon has a similar type experience, being a bastard, growing up on the lower end of the spectrum, seeing royalty for what they are. He has like an outside perspective in a way that made the Egg sort of unique as well, with his sort of outside perspective. And this is when it starts to get real intense. Tyrion here starts giving a speech about about, he said, like, obviously it matters what you do it, but like he has to explain why it's so important, right? So he goes on a speech here about Danny, and the first 3 stanzas, I'm calling them, of this speech are an amazing homage, which we'll talk about after I read the stanzas. He says, "When she murdered the slavers of Astapor, I'm sure no one but the slavers complained. After all, they were evil men. When she crucified hundreds of Milanese nobles, who could argue? They were evil men. The Dothraki Khals she burned alive, they would have done worse to her." And these 3 statements remind me so much. They made me think of the famous poem written by Martin Niemöller during World War II. I have a passage from Wikipedia to explain who he is and what this poem is, but it's the perfect place for it here, and it was very impactful for me, picking up on this parallel. So from Wikipedia, "First They Came" is the name of the poem. It's the poetic form of a prose post-war confession, first made in German in 1946 by the German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller, who was alive from 1892 to 1984, interestingly, 1984. It's about the cowardice of German intellectuals and the certain clergy, including, by his own repeated admissions, Niemöller himself, following the Nazis' rise to power and their subsequent and incremental purging of their chosen targets, group by group by group. Many variations and adaptations in the spirit of the original have been published in the English language. The poem deals with themes of persecution, guilt, repentance, and responsibility, all of the things that John is dealing with here in Tyrion. And so there are a few different versions in English that are edited versions that began circulating in the 50s, but the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum quotes the following text as one of the versions of the speech. "First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." So Tyrion is saying, first she burned the slavers of Astapor, and no one complained. First they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out. Then she crucified hundreds of Milanese nobles. Who could argue they were evil? Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then the Dothraki Khals she burned alive, but they would have done worse to her. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. He just doesn't say the 4th stanza, that they came for him and there was no one left to speak out, because we see that he's in prison and captured at this point. So it's kind of
still alive at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of implied, right? So
that's powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So I was blown away watching the script while I'm reading the script while I was watching the episode earlier, and noting this connection to Martin Niemöller and the Nazis and their incremental purging of targets, enemies of their organization. So damn, that was just really powerful, intense.
Well, that whole scene feels like there's so many parallels to so many things in our real life history, which we know George is good good at doing.
Yeah, exactly. This whole episode is full of stuff like that, which is amazing. So he goes on to basically say what everybody had said about the Mad King before her. She says, "Everywhere she goes, evil men die, and we cheer her for it. And she grows more powerful and more sure that she's good and right. She believes her destiny is to build a better world for everyone. If you believed that, if you truly believed it, wouldn't you kill whoever stood between you and paradise?" And at this point, John can't even. He needs to sit down. He's legit freaking out, man. Like, you are freaking out, man.
I'm freaking out, man. You are freaking out, man.
You know? You know what I mean?
You are freaking out, Super Troopers.
Yeah. The snozzberries taste like snozzberries. So John is freaking out, and Tyrion has a big confession here, and this is important because, you know, one of the parts of persuasion is to relate to the person who you're trying to convince of something. And so here he relates to John by pointing out that he knows that John loves Daenerys, you know, and he loves her too, he admits, although not as successfully as you, which was a hilarious line. But,
well put, though.
Yeah, like, you know, we're both.
I actually laughed out loud when he said that.
I did too.
My first watch through, I was like, oh.
Yeah, my comment is just LOL, laugh out loud.
Hashtag truth.
Yeah. So, and the next line is so heartbreaking for Tyrion because it's also true. He's like, I believed in her with all my heart, you know, and we just know like that he's so sad that he loved this person and believed in her, and he's just been let down in such a monumental and explosive way. It's just unbelievable, right? And he continues on saying, you know, that he was basically blinded by his love for her and he'd missed the red flags, which is something we've all experienced, I'm sure. But he has a beautiful way of saying it where he says, love is more powerful than reason. And he sort of like sniffles a little bit and says, we all know that. Look at my brother. And he starts to talk, but John cuts him off with our quote that we love to bring up because it's been one of the most consistent themes throughout the whole series here. Love is the death of duty.
Love is the death of duty.
Yeah. And Tyrion is shocked by this because, you know, he loves a good quote.
Did you just come up with that?
Yeah. Someone, a wise man once said that. Wait,
and
was
John
that you?
can't lie, so he's like,
well, Maester Aemon told me that a long time ago.
Actually, my great uncle, Maester Aemon, said it a long time ago.
Great uncle.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I always forget about that.
Crazy, right? So, and then Tyrion, you're just showing how sharp he is. Like he just heard love is the death of duty. And he's so smart and so like just on point here that he's able to turn it around into a profound inversion and truth, an inversion of the saying. And he says, sometimes duty is the death of love. You know, just like, oh my God. Just
is
like,
this where John closes his eyes?
I don't know.
I think he closes his eyes here and he's just like,
it's like, oh God,
I know what I have to do.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
it's so profound and just so powerful that he was so quickly able to take this saying.
He had to like take it in.
Yeah. And take it in and turn it around and, you know, show that he understands it, but also that he understands how it can work the opposite way as well. Like he reveals this truth as just a piece of a larger truth, which is that love can be the death of duty, but duty can also be the death of love, you know? And it's like the two halves of the puzzle are combined now for the greater truth.
Well, and it was like challenging him. Which are you?
Right.
What version are you?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. He had to contemplate it for a minute. He's like, oh, God damn it, Tyrion.
Right. Yeah.
Now you're making it all sorts of kind of confusing on me.
It's true because duty can be the death of love too. Like when responsibility draws you back in from flights of fancy or whimsy, and you like when you just have to do what you have to do when you just know it, right? Or in this case, when it means the literal death of love, like the one that John loves in this case, when duty requires him to kill that person. And Tyrion continues to make it even more relatable to John here in a brilliant stroke of manipulation, you know, calling back his Night's Watch vows, saying, you are the shield that guards the realms of men, and you've always tried to do the right thing. No matter the cost, you've tried to protect people. You know, and he knows it's true because he protected the wildlings and took a knife in the heart for it. You know what I mean? Like, he's paid the ultimate cost just trying to protect people, and now they're all in danger. As Tyrion points out, who is the greatest threat to the people now? And in a continuance of poignancy, it says, it's a terrible thing I'm asking. It's also the right thing. You know,
and John knows.
Yeah.
He totally knows
you
here.
Can
He's
see
just,
it
God damn it.
God damn it. Like, he doesn't want to betray Dany. He doesn't want to have to do it. But it's like John he's always put in this position. You know, he puts everything on the line and gets killed for it and gets brought back from death, like dragged back into life by Melisandre, you know, when he wanted none of it, like he was over it, you know, he's like, should have left me dead, you know, and then he quits and he wants nothing to do with the Night's Watch or anything, but Sansa drags him back into the fight as he realizes he has to continue trudging forward to retake Winterfell, and then continues to fight after that when he has to fight for life and in the Great War. And it's just like, no matter what he does and how he tries to get out, it's like that moment in Godfather 3, they pull me back in, you know? And so he and
he can't fake it. Like, he can't fake it till he makes it. He's so honorable and so
honest, like, and
true. He just has to do the right thing, and he won't function unless he does what he knows is right.
Every step you took was always the right step, as Theon told him, you know, and he knows here that the right step is duty, his duty, like, which is sadly resulting in the death of the potential love that he has on the other hand, you know, and he has to choose duty because he always has to choose duty. That's just who Jon is, you know. He chose duty over love before with Ygritte when he left her and rode back for the Night's Watch and took 3 arrows for it. This is just like a trope in his character that, like, it was inevitable. You know what I mean?
And his character, like, partially is still him being Ned Stark's son. He still follows all those ideals. Right. He still follows everything about him, even if it's not the blood that he thought it was. He always goes that route.
Yeah. It's just the right. He tries to do the right thing, you know?
And he does have that Stark blood running through his veins, too.
Yeah.
You know? So he has that juxtaposition and that balance, if you will.
Right.
You know,
totally. The tempering of the fire with the ice, you know, which is like, that's how you temper a blade. You heat it up and then you plunge it into the cold to temper the steel. So,
Ooh,
I mean, that's like,
well put.
you know, it's a combination of the ice and fire, the Targaryen temperament with the Stark influence to temper the temperament, you know?
The temperament.
Yeah, tempering your temperament.
Nice play on words there, Duncan.
So he makes the moral case here and urges Jon to do the right thing. And then he moves on making it personal, you know? Do you think I'm the last man shall execute? Who's more dangerous than the rightful heir to the Iron Throne? And Tyrion's becoming more frantic here as he's trying to convince Jon, and Jon is like, you know, he's still trying to fight against it. That's her decision. She's the queen, you know, and he stands up and he's going to leave, and he touches him on the shoulder. I think he's like, I'm sorry it came to this, you know, to Tyrion. And he goes to leave and knocks on the door. And this is the scene this is what convinces Jon, I think. And it's the same thing, the same motivation that convinced Ned Stark to do something that he was not comfortable with, something that he wasn't sure was honorable, to save his daughters, in this case, to save his cousins, Jon's cousins, Sansa and Arya. Tyrion says, and your sisters, do you see them bending the knee? You know, and just like Arya had told Jon a couple minutes beforehand, you know, try telling Sansa that, you know, Sansa's not going to accept Dany. And Dany had said in her speech, although Jon and Tyrion didn't understand it, that they're going to liberate the people from Winterfell. So, like, you know,
liberate.
Yeah. So much
air quotes there.
Yeah. Much as Ned was swayed to do something that would go against his honor when he realized that it wasn't just his life on the line, that it was Arya and Sansa who were in danger. I think this is the final piece of convincing that Jon needed here. He realizes that Arya and Sansa are in danger, and he knows that he has to act. So he it stops him in his tracks, and he's not 100% sure. He tells Tyrion, my sisters will be loyal to the throne. And Tyrion's like, you don't believe that, man.
Why do you think Sansa told me about you?
Yeah, because she doesn't want Dany to be queen. And Jon's like, she doesn't get to choose. But Tyrion is like, no, but you do. You are Aegon Targaryen. You know what I mean?
I wrote down that Jon was always going to have to choose between the Starks and the Targaryens.
Oh, it sucks.
I got that feeling from the beginning that he was always going to have to choose between Starks, Targaryens, family, Dany, basically.
It sucks, too, because he tells Theon, like, you don't have to choose. You're a Greyjoy and a Stark.
I wrote that down, too. I was like, he was going to have to make this choice that didn't make sense, but ultimately that's what it was. Who was he gonna
back? Yeah.
Who was he gonna be?
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's intense. So he's like, you know, she doesn't get to choose. No, but you do. And right now the gate is, the door is opening as the Unsullied is unlocking it. And he puts the last, you know, spur into John's side and says, and you have to choose now. Right now, literally. And it just made me...
The next move you make has to be to go do this.
It's one of these moments in history. I mean, Ned Stark was placed in the same position when Robert died, and he was thrust in this position where he had to make a choice. He had to join forces with Renly, which would give him enough power to make it okay for Littlefinger to actually bring the Gold Cloaks to his side, because he had a good chance to win, and he needed to, you know, put himself on the Iron Throne to make sure that the rightful heir got the throne. And he refused to take action and join with Renly and do what he needed to do. And Ned's inaction is what led to Cersei taking over the throne, basically, and led to all of this chaos. And so in a moment of truth where John is put in the same position, he decides to choose differently than Ned did, and to act in it, and to be decisive in a moment where it's required. And he goes directly from Tyrion to John to Dany, and makes his move.
He did. I mean, instantly.
Yeah,
instantly.
He had to choose.
He made that decision
now.
Right there.
Yeah, like it's just the urgency of that scene and that moment is just like, it can't be overstated. You know what I mean? This is just one of those epic moments in history where a choice could be the difference between everything, and the fate of the realm, and the fate of the innocent people of the Seven Kingdoms.
I think if he would have waited to, like, if he would have contemplated his choices, he knew internally that he wasn't going to do it. So he needed to build the courage up right then and there and just go do it. Because if he thought about it at all, I don't think he would have been able to.
Right. And he's even like, you know, feeling her out in the conversation that they end up having. But we'll get to that in a minute.
I think if he waited, more people could die.
Yeah, exactly.
If he waited too long, who knows who would die next?
Totally.
Who knows who the next victims would be?
It could very easily be Sansa. You know, like she could fly straight to Winterfell.
Absolutely. She could just take a dragon up there real fast.
Yeah, just roast it all and come back.
Fry it up.
No, they don't have
did you see that look that she had with him? She had a really deep look. Like when they're on top of that staircase, they had a look where she would...
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about that. There was a whole host of emotions that came across her face when we get there. Yeah, I noticed that too. There was a very deep look. But yeah.
I was going to send that to you earlier, Duncan. I was going to be like, I recorded on my phone and I was like, what does this mean? There's so many things.
Yeah, I have it down. I think I know exactly.
All right, I'm excited for that.
So yeah, I think it's at this moment where he says you have to choose now that John realizes, like, you know, he knows what he needs to do and he's going to take the right steps. And he does, you know, I think he does, although he's not sure about it later on.
I think he does.
Anything else you guys want to add about the, you know, the terrible, you know, what he's asking, the terrible favor he's asking, terrible task, the terrible thing?
No,
I don't think so.
Not me. I'm good.
Man.
Nice. So I think we're on Princess Sarah's number 2.
Yes.
All right. So my number 2 is Drogon's powerful reaction when Dany died, which I don't think they could have possibly done better.
Oh, right? Epic.
Every detail that they put into his face, from, I mean, his eyebrows to his eyeballs to like even his tongue, everything was so detailed and perfect, and I felt every moment of it like he was a real life human character.
Yeah, totally.
It broke my heart.
And the way
even like when he stands up, like even his chest tightens as he starts screaming. You can see like the muscles like tense up into his body.
Yeah, and like the way that he like wrenches his neck as he like his head like writhes in anguish, you know, as he screeches to the sky.
His like fins or whatever like burl out and they shake, and
yeah,
everything was just not fins, but
amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
It was so intense, and I couldn't have like, I don't know if even a real person could have given that reaction the same way, because it was so beautiful.
Yeah, it was so crazy.
That was when I really cried, was when I saw him.
Yeah, nudging her body.
Pining. Oh,
trying to wake her up, you know, it's like, it's so brutal to watch.
Like, what the hell just happened here, dude?
Yeah, that was a really, really sad moment. It was interesting too, Rachel. You've talked about how Dany and Drogon seem to have like a mental bond. And the second that she dies, Drogon stirs outside and knows immediately.
Right there.
There's something wrong.
Yeah, so that, I think, definitively tells us that, yes, there was a mental bond between the two. He knows immediately when she dies, right?
Oh, man. That's so sad. That was so sad when he smelled her and, you know, like started nudging her body, and he's like cooing and making these noises. It's like, wake up, wake up.
Yeah, sad music is playing too, just making it even worse to watch.
So sad. It makes
but
me
he
so
made
sad.
sense of it all, like in his own mind. He looked at Jon, he looked at the throne, he looked at everything that was happening.
Saw the knife sticking out of Dany.
Yeah. And I don't think they could have done that better. I
don't think so either.
Yeah,
appreciated
the
it.
more I think about it, the more I like it. I think that Drogon, you know, he knew that Jon was pure in heart. You know, he could smell the Targaryen blood. He can sense that he's pure and has good intentions. And he saw the dagger in Dany, and he saw the throne made of blades. And I feel like he just instinctively knew that it was the throne that was really the death of Dany, you know? Her rise and downfall are both due to motivations derived from that throne and what it symbolizes and how it came to be. And I thought it was really just intense that Drogon recognized that the throne was the danger and what it stood for. And he took out his anger on the throne instead of Jon. Just
God damn,
so
did he
amazing.
ever? What a beautiful.
And the way he looked at it was just he looked at it with so much hate. Like, how can you get a CGI character to look at it so well?
I
It
know.
was just perfect.
I thought he was trying to get, like, I thought Jon was going to hop on his back for a second there. After,
I thought he was going to burn Jon, and we would find out, like, Jon was unburnt.
fireproof. Like,
oh, shit.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. Oh,
I
man.
like this better, honestly. That throne needed to be
Yeah, it was so good,
It was
man.
ugly anyways.
It took a dragon to destroy what a dragon made. Full circle, baby.
Truth.
You know? Oh my God, it was so good. And then Drogon flies off with Dany's body, maybe to Valyria.
That's where I thought maybe he was going.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, who knows? But either way, it's sad as fuck, you know? And how about that shot where he reaches his little claw underneath Daenerys and scoops her up, and
so
she's
sad.
lying there limp, and oh my God, dude, that was ultra intense. And the music that's playing as Drogon soars off into the distance and the screen fades to black. There's a beautiful resolution, a major resolution of the music as it all coalesces together on the end on a major chord, a happy note, a major resolution as it fades to black, and that's the last we'll get.
They went in so many directions with the music just in that one little scene.
I know, it was insane.
Like, it was sad to happy to what?
Yeah, and it ends on a happy note. It ended on a happy note. I think that's worth noting.
Did you guys feel okay with how she died? You think?
Yeah, I thought it was perfect.
I do too.
I thought it was poetic, and I know that we had kind of last week, Duncan talked about the Valonqar theory, how it didn't play out the way the prophecy, it didn't play out the way we thought it would, but in like kind of a strange way, like his hands were around her neck as they died.
Right.
I kind of feel this way about the Azor Ahai theory, because Jon sacrificed his love for Dany in order to bring about the
Peace.
dawn, and I'm using air quote here.
Yeah, peace in the Seven
to
Kingdoms.
bring about peace in the Seven Kingdoms.
Right.
And we do get, when he goes north of the wall, I don't know if you guys noticed, there is a sprout of green grass.
Oh, yeah, that he steps through.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So he's like
There's
bringing
one little
the
teeny.
new season.
Oh.
So he's not the Lord of Light, and he's not Azor Ahai, and he doesn't like wield Lightbringer, but he sacrificed something
Yeah.
that he loves
Well,
to
it's
bring
exactly
about
the
peace
same
to
as Azor Ahai. Azor Ahai sacrificed his love, his wife, Nissa,
yeah.
by stabbing her through the
Yeah.
heart in order
Except
to
didn't
create
she
the...
voluntarily do it though?
Yeah, that's true. But he said, "Bare your breast." You know, like it was his idea. She just did it willingly.
Bare them boobies.
Yeah, and forgive me for this terrible thing I must do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's pretty damn close.
Yeah, let's look it up. Actually,
I just thought it was really perfectly parallel, but not spot on, and I appreciated that.
I mean, every picture that everyone's been sharing and everything about what, you know, could happen for Azor Ahai, it was Jon stabbing Dany.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mhm.
You got it.
yeah, and it resulted in the end of the her reign of
The
terror.
tyranny.
It
and-
broke the
yeah.
wheel, essentially.
Yeah.
It actually broke the wheel because then, you know, the next king was an appointed king. And from here on out in Westeros, when a king dies, a council of lords and ladies will elect a new ruler instead of it being a lineage.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So interestingly, it's like the original Azor Ahai ended a reign of darkness and ice, and Jon ended a reign of fire and you know,
blood.
Yeah, fire and blood. There you
Yeah.
go. So I guess it's pretty interesting.
I was just thinking of like this one picture that I saw a bunch of times of, I don't know, it was like fan art.
Oh, the drawing.
Oh, there's the one that I posted on Game of Microphones of Jon stabbing Dany through the heart.
Dany, right?
And it's like a perfect mirror. I was gonna bring that up when we actually talk about the death scene, because it's like it's side by side. They're like spot on of each other.
Yeah, I noted that too.
Nissa, Nissa, he said to her, for that was her name, bare your breast and know that I love you best of all that is in this world. She did this thing, why I cannot say, and Azor Ahai thrust the smoking sword through her living heart. It is said that her cry of anguish and ecstasy left a crack across the face of the moon, but her blood and her soul and her strength and her courage all went into the steel. So it doesn't say terrible thing, but it says this thing, which is mindful of Tyrion saying, this is a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing I ask you to do. But, you know.
It's crazy.
Cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else you guys want to add about?
I was going to say, that's the part of paying attention. There's so many things that I don't know, they did pay attention to the fans.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe not the way that the fans thought they would, but.
And I'm glad they didn't do it, because to Duncan's point last episode, or maybe it was even the episode before that, they're all running together for me. There was already an Azor Ahai. Why should there be another one?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
And I loved that when you said that, Duncan, because it's true. And I thought that this was a very poetic, if the watchers read into it, you know, it's poetic enough and it's close enough and it's mirrored enough that in a weird way, the prophecy was fulfilled. Not verbatim, but
yeah, no, you're right.
What prophecy ever really has been filled verbatim in Westeros, or planet Toast world and our own world?
Yeah, and the place where I found that quote is a Business Insider article that says that the devastating Game of Thrones finale death of Daenerys was an imperfect fulfillment of the show's biggest prophecy,
fabulous.
the Azor Ahai prophecy. So, yeah, I guess Business Insider realized it before we did.
Business Insider, what up? Me and you, we're on the same page.
Well done.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add about this, or should we move on to your numero dos, Lady Rachel?
I'm good. I think that was a great number 2 from Lady Sarah.
Definitely.
Oh, thanks.
Let's see. My number 2 is the small council meeting.
Oh, my God, that's nice. Amazing.
I loved this for so many reasons.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
There's lots of little moments in this episode that reflect back throughout great moments throughout the series. And this to me was the most well done of them all.
Nice.
So that's why I chose it as my number 2.
Perfect.
Right off the bat with the chairs.
Yes.
Exactly.
He sits down and all the chairs are fucked up. So now he's like moving them all around.
It shows you like how he takes his job seriously. You know what I mean? And as much as he said, like, I don't deserve to be king or hand of the king and all this, like, he's the man for the job because he's going to do it right. And the fact that he's changing the, neatening up the chairs and straightening them out, just kind of symbolic to me that he wants to do a good job. You know what I mean?
Well, and
he's like trying to figure out how to sit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was funny too. How he should appear.
And also that he has brawn on it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, why does he have brawn there? Master coin. It's like, he knows what he's doing. He's doing all right. I know a lot of people were like, why is brawn there? Brawn sucks at Master coin.
I loved that brawn was there.
I did too.
That was my favorite part of the whole episode is that Bronn is the de facto. Bronn won the Game of Thrones.
Funny.
I mean, out of everybody, he got the coolest shit of all. He gets High Garden, sickest castle, the most
and
lush
he's
region.
Master of Coin.
Yeah,
like,
Master
why
of Coin.
wouldn't he be Master
job.
of Coin?
He's always been a fan of gold. It's perfect.
Exactly. It fits his character perfectly.
Yeah, he went from being nothing to being Master of Coin, Lord Protector of the Reach, Lord
and he
of High
still
Garden.
acts the same. He was still quippy and kind of
power hasn't gone to his head.
Kind of an asshole. I like that.
Yeah, I love it.
So they all enter and he's trying to like figure out how to sit. Like he's kind of nervous.
Yeah.
In a good way. And I instantly noticed that Samwell is in maester robes with a very small maester chain.
Grand Maester Sam.
Like, he's Grand Maester, and I loved that so much. He's reached wizard status, you guys.
Because Pycelle was Grand Maester, right? That's like the boss of all the maesters.
He's the boss of the boss. Dude. He's because Ebros was Archmaester.
Yeah, and
Ebros,
obviously
so Grand Maester.
He's in deep with Bran, the Broken, right? They realized Jon's destiny together, like they're like inseparable at this point. So it makes perfect sense that he's like, you're going to be my Grand Maester. I trust you. You're like on point and smart and cool and stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just funny,
Before I forget to mention this, because I'm afraid I'm going to forget, because we just are so detailed with our discussion, is I loved, aside from Bran the Broken being like the fact that he's like crippled, that Bran the Broken is the fact that like they broke the wheel and Bran is the first king in this new like cycle of life.
That's
essentially.
Cool. Because the wheel is broken.
That, Rachel.
Yeah, so he like Danny was a part of breaking the wheel. Jon kind of was the other part of breaking the wheel,
right. But he's
Bran
the result.
Is Bran the Broken. Yeah. He's the result of that wheel being broken.
Bran the Broken. Bran of the broken wheel. That's cool.
I love that.
Yeah, good
and
call.
And it's even more like, the fact that he's in a wheelchair. I just thought Bran the Broken, and he's going to like move this whole life forward in a new and brighter way than before.
Definitely. Like I mentioned before, maybe that's his destiny. Much. That's what maybe his task was that the Three-Eyed Raven was preparing him for.
Yeah, so I that's totally like not a part of my number 2, but I just wanted to say that because it was a note in my head that I didn't get to write down, and
that is a great note.
Forget it.
Like that just, oh my God, that made me feel so happy.
Okay,
it makes so much sense.
Yeah, thank you. So we get Sam, good old Sam, all happy, and he plops this giant book down in front of Tyrion, and Tyrion's like, what's this?
Huh. None other.
Song of Ice and Fire. And I was like, oh my God. And I was hoping Sam wrote it, but Archmaester Ebros wrote it.
Yeah.
And it's a history of the wars following the death of King Robert.
He helped him with the title a little bit. As we know, the
sure
first one was a little rough.
I wanted to ask you. You're going to write histories, Tarly. You have to do the research. If you want people to read your histories, you need a bit of style. I'm not writing a chronicle of the wars following the death of King Robert I, so it can sit on a shelf unread. What? You don't like the title? What would you call it, then?
Possibly something a bit more poetic?
We're not poets, darling.
So Tyrion's like, well, I hope I didn't get too badly criticized in this book. And Sam's like,
I wouldn't say that.
So what does he say about me? Oh, he's kind? Oh, never would have guessed. Well, wait, what are you talking about?
No, it doesn't quite say that.
I don't believe that you're mentioned.
Think about that. A Song of Ice and Fire without the fan favorite, Tyrion. That's just hilarious.
I wouldn't read it.
Yeah.
Right? Totally.
I wouldn't read it. So he's like, oh, and Bronn's kind of laughing, and they're all kind of like, awkward.
Oh, yeah.
So then we get Bran entering, and everyone, instead of saying it all at once, they're like, Your Grace, Your Grace, Your Grace.
Oh, true.
Your Grace.
Oh, it's worth mentioning also that when Tyrion is all butthurt that he was not mentioned in A Song of Ice and Fire, Bronn is loving Tyrion's frustration about not being mentioned and not being the center of attention.
Laughing.
Bronn's laughing his balls off. It's so good. So funny,
He's
man.
totally laughing at it. And so Bran, in typical Robo Bran fashion, we appear to be missing a master of whispers and laws and war. Tyrion's like, well, yeah. We're going to have some prospects here in the next couple of weeks. And again, we're left with kind of an untied ending there. Like, who is going to fill those roles?
And I'm just thinking, man, you're lucky to even have this room. Yeah, you're missing a couple positions that haven't been hired yet, but how is this room still even intact that you're sitting in?
I know, right?
Oh my God. I wonder if they'll try to repair the castle or rebuild it or what.
I'm sure they will over time, but it's going to take decades to rebuild King's Landing.
Oh, yeah.
And so then we again get another little loose ending here. And what about Drogon? Well, he was spotted flying east.
The farther away, the better.
I thought when they said east that he was going to Valyria.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't see where else.
Where else would he go?
The mountains where he had those roasted goats where the Dothraki found Dany.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Valyria is my bet.
Yeah, I think so. Because we saw him flying over Valyria with Tyrion and Jorah.
Yep, exactly.
And Bran, he's going to try to warg into him, I think.
Oh, yeah. Or at least try to locate him. And I was wondering.
I thought maybe he was going to try to warg into him because that way they can control him.
That's what I thought.
So he's not
that would certainly be
an
ultimate goal, I would say.
That's what what did you think, Sarah?
I feel like the way he said it was like, maybe we can find him. Like he'd be able to warg into him, or I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Just the way he delivered that line, I was like, okay, he's gonna find him. He's gonna be able to
totally
take care of him.
I was wondering, in the books they talk, I mentioned this on the live show last night too, but in the books they talk about how when you try to warg into something for the first time, it'll fight back. And Hodor was fighting Bran when he tried to warg into Hodor, and eventually Hodor gave up and was like, oh, his consciousness was curled up in a ball, just letting Bran do his thing basically. But so I was wondering, how difficult would it be to warg into a dragon? Maybe extremely difficult.
Damn.
There's Varamir Sixskins, I think, in the books is talking about how every time he wargs into this cave bear, this ice bear, the bear hates it and rages against him, and you could just tell that if he lost control, the bear would rip him to shreds. So
oh shit.
Yeah, who knows how crazy it would be trying to warg into a dragon.
So then he says, well, I'll find him. You need to just carry on. And we get Sir Podrick.
Sir Podrick is golden
Sir
armor.
Podrick has been knighted.
Yeah, and it looks like he's part of the Kingsguard as well.
I think he is.
So here's my question.
I think Brienne is too.
Yeah. So why is Brienne the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard for Bran and not the Lord Commander of Sansa's Queensguard?
Good question. That's a very good question.
Because she was sworn to protect the Stark girls.
That's a good question,
That's
Duncan.
a good question.
So yeah, like what happens now if Bran the Broken decides to wage war against Sansa Stark? Who does she fight for?
Fuck.
We've got some splaining to do, Bran.
Maybe, I mean, this is total speculation, obviously, but maybe Sansa gave her permission to stay with Bran because Bran may need Brienne more.
Makes
than
perfect
Sansa.
sense. And that's the type of stuff we have to sort of imagine on our own to flesh out some of these decisions that were made.
And that's what I love, that they gave us kind of these open-ended, like, avenues to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it could have just been a continuity error, but I feel like maybe she gave Brienne permission to stay to help her, you know, crippled brother, and just the more badassery around Bran, the better, just because he's a little bit more vulnerable.
Right.
And Sansa has the Northmen and the Vale, you know, well, I guess not the Vale anymore because the Vale is a part of the Six Kingdoms.
Right.
But she has, you know, the Northmen to back her, and they support her for now.
Well, that's Sansa believing that the best person to take care of Bran would be Brienne.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would be the number one person that she could probably think of.
Definitely.
Like, you can have him.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
So Tyrion's like, we serve at your pleasure, King Bran the Broken, ruler of the Six Kingdoms and protector of the realm.
Long may he reign.
Long may he reign.
Long may he reign.
Long may he reign. And I think they're all supposed to say it together. And Tyrion's like, that's going to improve.
I'm sure it will.
And Bran kind of smiles here. He's like, I'm sure it will.
We got a couple smiles from Robo Bran this episode. That was kind of surprising.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah. This is when he, you know, brings up Sir Bronn of the Blackwater, Lord of the Highgarden, Lord Paramount of the Reach, and Master of Coin. Would you say the crown's debt to you has been paid?
It has.
Yeah, he won the Game of Thrones IMO.
Now it's time to start incurring a new
Dude,
set.
he played it so hardcore. It's not even
He
funny.
totally did.
He's
Jeez.
OG. He's the surviving series OG, I would say.
He totally is.
So funny too. He replies, "In full, my lord hand." He's so like courteous and like
yep,
proper about it. Yeah. Good. Time to start incurring a new one.
We have hungry people. Can we expect some assistance in this regard?
Indeed, we can.
Great. Fabulous. And then we find out that Davos is the master of ships.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that they need to rebuild the armada and repair the ports. And Davos kind of starts elbowing the master of coin here. He's like, well, if this master of coin and his lord of lofty titles provides the, you know, the coin, we can get this done.
Davos was like, there's only room for one up-jumped lowborn in this small council. You know?
Totally.
Hilarious. The Master of Coin looks forward to helping the Master of Ships, but first he has to ensure that we're not wasting coin, or there won't be no more coin.
Anymore.
Yes. Love the Stannis reference, you know?
And now he's the master of grammar.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is really where I feel like they're starting to feel back to a new normal.
Yeah,
and I know
business
normal
as usual.
Yeah, it's not the best word to use because I'm sure they don't feel normal, but they're starting to get back into like a natural groove.
Yeah, this will be the new normal. You know, it's not normal yet, but it will be, you know? This is also where we learn that Sam is a Grand Maester.
Oh, yes.
I was like, holy fuck, dude.
I love it. And he only has a couple links on his chain, I just noticed.
Even though he's Grand Maester. It's hilarious.
It was kind of cute.
I bet the Maesters were pissed about that, dude.
Fuck those guys.
You know?
They didn't listen to him when
They weren't listening in the
Sam
first
needed
place.
him the most.
Yeah, I bet Ebros is not too mad about it, though. He probably is like, well, Sam was right the whole time, and because of him, the Seven Kingdoms are still intact, basically, you know? So.
Right? Totally. So, they just kind of get down to business here, and I think that's what I like so much about it is, you know, they're talking about the sewers and the clean water.
I love that. Tyrion's really smart. That's quite an astute observation to make, that, you know, healthiness of a population is relative to the water supply. It wasn't until the Great Stink of 1858 that the sewers, modern sewers, needed to be invented, and it was recognized that there was a connection between, you know, drinking water and being contaminated with like feces and stuff like that. You know, do you guys know about the Great Stink of 1858?
You've talked about this before. Wasn't it like Europe that their sewers all like got all backed up and shit, and there was like shit all over the place?
Yeah, they didn't have sewers. So in the summer of 1858, it was just such a hot, brutal summer. People were tossing their bedpans out the windows and stuff like that. And the city of London, I think it was, just stunk so bad that somebody was like, we need to, you know, and like people are getting sick and everything. And like, they're like, we need to figure something out here, you know? Sidetrack.
God, that's so gross.
Sorry. Tangent. It's just, you know, if I have an opportunity to talk about the Great Stink of 1858, how can I refuse?
Oh yeah, they'll take it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, you got it out of your system.
So to speak.
My septic system.
The sewer system.
There you go.
So Bronn makes note, though, well, if we're going to talk about building anything, the brothel's all burnt down. What the fuck?
Master of Coin is willing to fund reconstruction.
Oh my God. And Sam's like, well, Archmaester isn't too enthusiastic about the salutary effects of the brothels.
It's probably because he isn't using them right.
It's just great, like, back and forth. Like, they are, maybe starting the process of healing a little bit here.
Yeah, totally. They are. And you can tell from just a couple lines later, which we'll get to in a couple of lines.
Yeah.
So do you guys feel okay with who is on the council? I know that's another thing. I'm almost half speaking for the somewhat fans. A lot of people didn't like who was on the council, things like that. Are
who
you guys
else is left that could be on the council?
Exactly.
I mean, if you're going to complain, about who's on the council, I would like to know who you think.
What's your plan?
Would be better on the council.
You know, what's your plan?
Yeah, who are you bringing back from the dead?
I'm personally fine. How about you, Duncan?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, the only real concern I would have it'd be Bronn, just because who knows what he'll be doing as Master of Coin, how much he'll be embezzling for himself. But he's so rich at this point, and he does seem to have a heart, you know. It's to some extent, you know. So I think that he'll try to do a good job. You know, I feel like working with Tyrion.
He's been paid.
Yeah,
he's got his castle.
He's got all the money he needs. So I feel like, you know, with working with Tyrion and like having this position of power, he's gonna do the best he can and make the most of the opportunity that he's been given. I think that he's ready for a new life. You know, his fighting days are done, as he said. Although he's still got a few killing days left, right? But he's got some coin counting days, plenty of coin counting days left.
I don't think anyone knows him better than Tyrion. Like, I think they've been through most every adventure that they can go through together, and Tyrion would not put him on that council or back him on that council unless he knew, for one, that he would be okay, two, that he wouldn't be able to watch over him.
Right. And he needs people that he can trust as his masters, you know, like, so as
Bronn's
Dany's
a
hand.
dick, but Tyrion knows when he's being a dick. He knows what's going on.
Right. And they actually had like a good relationship, you know what I mean? As opposed to like Bronn and his other pairings. For sure.
Exactly.
But yeah, like sorry, go ahead.
I
Rachel.
agree. I think it's a good council, and if people are complaining about it on the internet, I would like to know who they think should be there instead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
a simple
question. I'm not like
put it in the comments down there.
If you're gonna say that they're not good, then I would expect for you to have an answer of who you think should be on the council. I personally think it's great. I think Brienne is a great
she showed that she had some strategic,
leader of the Kingsguard.
You know, like sort of a strategic mind when she was talking with Jaime about their strategy and like the terrain that they had at Winterfell and everything like that. So, I mean,
and she's loyal and she's a fighter and she'll do her duty. And Bronn likes money, so he's going to be good with it.
The Brienne thing. I mean, I could spoil it now, the revelation of why it's so appropriate that she's Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, or I could wait till we get to that scene. What do you want? You want me to tell you now or tell you in a little bit?
I think we're going to be there very soon.
Okay, so I'll wait.
Yeah. Hold off.
Cool.
Are you talking about when she writes in the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it there, because that's an important scene.
I have like the whole thing printed out right here.
Nice.
Oh. And so, and then
it was
Davos
like so special.
naturally should be the master of ships.
Naturally.
Duh.
Perfect sense.
And then Sam, he's like the best maester there is. I mean, he cured Jorah and
he figured out the whole
the dragon glass thing, like the kingdoms are in his debt. The dragon glass
thing, he figured out Jon's lineage. I mean,
yeah. He's like Septon Barth kind of, you know what I mean? Like except a maester version. Septon Barth was Jaehaerys the Conciliator's hand, but he was this dude, a Septon, who's just like a book smart guy who knew everything. And he's in the books, pay attention for Septon Barth. I've said it before because what he says is usually canon, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then we finally get the last line of the scene is, I once brought a jackass and honeycomb into a brothel.
Yeah, they're talking about what's more important, brothels or ships, you know, and they're kind of arguing about it. And Brenn's like, I think we can all agree that ships take precedence over brothels. And Bronn's like, I think that's a very presumptuous statement. And Tyrion has to like add in his joke, and this is how you know it's like business as usual. They're getting back to like joking around, and you know it's true when Tyrion, he brings this joke out when he feels comfortable with the people around him, you know what I mean? And
is it the third time that we've heard this joke?
I believe so. And aside from us getting cut off, there's nothing to indicate that this got cut off in the actual, you know, telling of the joke. I bet he got to actually finish the joke this time. We just didn't get to hear it, those bastards.
I know. I love that we've never heard the ending to that.
You guys heard the ending though on that dude posted, right? That he created.
Yes.
So good. We should read it.
So funny.
Damn.
I don't think I heard that.
Oh, hold on. Give me a second to look it up. It's on our Facebook page because it's just so funny, man.
You have to read it in Tyrion's accent though.
All right. Okay, so we got a great effort to complete Tyrion's infamous joke by EM_Hayes on Reddit, I believe. And thank you to Sir Patrick of Hindsight for sharing it with us. I once walked into a brothel with a honeycomb and a jackass. The madam asked, "What can we do for you?" "I need a woman to lay with, for mine has left me." The madam says, "Whatever for? And what's with the honeycomb and the mule?" So I say, "My woman found a genie in a bottle, and he granted her 3 wishes. The first was for a house fit for a queen, so he gave her this damn honeycomb. The second wish was that she have the nicest ass in all the land, so he gave her this damn donkey. And what about the third wish?" the madam asked. "Well, she asked the genie to make my cock hang down past my knee." So the madam asks, "Well, that's not so bad, eh?" "Not so bad. I used to be 6'3".
Oh my God, that's
pretty good,
right?
Wow.
Really good, really good. House fit
Really
for a
good.
queen. You know, the honeycomb. It's just like something that somebody would ask for 3 wishes.
Tyrion.
Yeah, all of these things fit so perfectly. So I guess what's the gist of the punchline is that instead of making his dick longer, she just made his body shorter.
Shorter.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's so sad. But it's a great way to you know, come up with an answer for that joke that connects everything together. I was just like blown away that somebody was clever enough to do that. It's something that we've speculated about for a long time. Like, is there an answer? Was there ever an answer? Is there an answer that could ever make sense to this weird beginning of a riddle.
Jackass and a honeycomb.
Yeah, I once brought a jackass and a honeycomb into a brothel. It's so random, you know? So I love it, yeah.
I love
Used
that
to be
it's so
6'3".
random.
Totally. All right. Anything else you guys want to add about that, or where are we?
I think we're on year number 2.
Okay, my number 2 is John killing Danny.
Oh, this is my number 1.
All right, let's collaborate. So, as we talked about, John went to visit Tyrion, and he leaves Tyrion, and immediately, it seems, approaches the castle. And as he starts to walk up, there's these heaping mounds of ash and rubble. But one of them starts to move and to stir. And lo and behold, Drogon is lurking underneath the ash. And
isn't that crazy?
That was so amazing.
Yes, maybe.
I was like, oh my God. I thought it was just like debris crumbling.
Yeah, maybe the most badass shot in the entire series. Drogon emerging out from there.
No, I disagree. I think the most badass shot was when the dragon wings came up behind Danny.
Yes.
Metal album cover.
I'm so with you on that.
Oh my God, I had goosebumps. It was, ooh.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
I reached over and grabbed my husband's arm. I was like, oh my God.
It's like the contrast between like the white wings of an angel and the black wings of the angel of death. You know what I mean?
And they were flapping, like so powerful. Like,
and then
so cool.
Drogon like launches just like vertically above her, like it's leaving her body.
Oh man, yeah, that was
Yes,
nuts.
so-
Totally cool way to look at that.
Like the devil is like leaving her body.
But he didn't.
Not particularly.
So Drogon emerges from underneath the ash. Perfect place for a dragon to hide under the ash from the destruction it had created. You know what I mean? So awesome.
And that just shows how much ash is in the air.
Yeah, just crazy amounts of ash. And so Drogon like lurches over and goes face to face with Jon, extending his neck down towards him. And apparently Jon passes the sniff test because he moves aside and curls up again, letting Jon pass.
It's like, what's up, bro?
It's like, oh, it's you. You're cool.
He's tired from burning the shit out of a million people.
Yeah, apparently.
So he's going to keep taking his nap.
His ash nap. So we get Danny, who's walking through the throne room, approaching the throne. Yeah, I thought that was really cool how she had the vision in the House of the Undying all those seasons ago where she walks up to the throne and the ash is falling from the sky and the room is destroyed and she's just about to touch it, but something prevents her from sitting on the throne, and she instead walks out through the door and finds the tent and Khal Drogo and her child are there waiting for her. And it's a beautiful parallel to what actually happened. People are saying that they think that it would be nice if that's what really did happen. You know, as she goes up to touch the throne, and before she sits, she's distracted by Jon, who ends up killing her. And in a way, the vision from the House of the Undying is true, that she gets to the throne, but then she, instead of sitting, ends up being reunited with her one true love, her real true love, Drogo.
I played those scenes from season 2 and the new one side by side, and it almost mirrors completely. It follows the same shots from behind her, looking at the throne.
So
it's almost
awesome.
Perfectly mirrored. I encourage the fans to watch it because in the first one, there's no music. In the second one, it has the music that's very eerie. So if you watch it together.
Yeah, I'll put them both on the screen side by side.
Yeah, you'll see, Duncan. It's like almost perfect.
I can't
wait. It goes around her head, and then it looks at the throne. It's like the same thing. It was really
so
cool.
Sick.
And you had mentioned it in the live show. That's the only reason I even looked at it.
Yeah, someone from our chat mentioned it, I think, and blew my mind. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, I thought it was you that mentioned it.
No, someone else. I'm definitely not taking credit for it.
Oh yeah, go look back and see who mentioned it, because it was like a perfect parallel, for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking for
it. And it literally goes around her head, looks at the throne, and then goes back around. I mean, almost
cuts
shot
down
for shot.
by her that shot looking from the side of her hand as she's about to touch it too, like same shot.
Yeah. Yep, same exact shot. It's almost like perfect.
And we get this shot from behind the throne as she steps up the steps, and she's looking a bit crazed in her eyes. Like, I was like, oh man.
A bit?
Yeah,
she's fucking lost it.
Yeah.
She's gone.
She's all bugged out and everything, and crazy amounts of tension.
She smoked way too much crack that morning.
Way too much, yeah.
Too much ash.
Too much ash,
Too
yeah.
much ash.
So she like reaches out to touch the throne, and we get a shot mirroring the shot of her reaching out to touch it in her vision, close up of one of the handles of the throne, of one of the swords on like the arm of it or something, and she reaches out, and the music is so intense. It's like a woman singing the theme song, like
I know,
slowly,
so echoey and hollow
super
sounding.
eerie. It reminded me of the introduction of like the intro music for the video game Lords of the Fallen, which actually uses the same chord progression as the Game of Thrones theme song. I've actually put them side by side on another occasion, just to hear them synced up to each other, and they perfectly line up. It's pretty crazy, yeah. So the way the orchestration of this scene reminded me of Lords of the Fallen theme song. So maybe I'll put those two together and see if I can get them to line up. Although this is much slower.
I also noted that in the vision at the House of the Undying, the throne room actually like looked a little bit different. It was more intact.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like
in this scene,
because that's one of the things I was saying at the in our episode for last week. I was like, it looks like she fucked up the throne room way worse than it was in the vision, And I guess I was right.
You were, but it didn't get disintegrated.
Not completely.
It still exists.
Yep. So crazy tension as she reaches out to touch the throne, and she does, and she touches it, and right after she touches it, we get this swell of bass like a cello, swelling and an orchestral swell, rounding it all out, and it cuts to this side shot of her touching the throne and looking at the throne as ash rains down around her. And I was like, damn, if this is not Queen of the Ashes personified, like, I don't know what is, you know what I mean? The image of her with the throne, like enthralled with it, and the ash just dumping all around her is just super creepy. And she smiles, and she turns as John appears in the doorway across the hall.
Oh, that was so eerie.
So eerie. The whole time that she was sitting there, like, at the throne, the gape of the doorway was in the background. And I was just looking at that, just waiting for John to come through it. I was like, any second he's going to come through that door. The darkness of the
I can't believe they left her alone. Like, she has no guards around her at all.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, they're in the Red Keep at this moment. So obviously the Unsullied have been through it here and secured it entirely.
That's true.
So this
That's
area
supposed to be the safest place.
Yeah, this area is secure, and she's got Drogon outside the entrance. Anybody other than John would never have been able to get to her, which is why it's so important that he's a Targaryen. The fact that Ned saved him is the only thing that enabled Dany to be stopped here. The fact that he's a Targaryen. Yeah, his blood is what enabled him to prevent his blood from continuing its reign of fire and blood.
I found it really interesting too that she is ascending the throne all by herself, though. Like, she doesn't have her people around her as she goes to touch the throne for the first time.
It's interesting.
Unlike Cersei, that it was like all the people had gathered. I mean, I know there's not very many people left in King's Landing, but
also, how long had it taken her to get from Drogon to the throne? Was she just like looking at every piece of art on the way there or something? Because Drogon was like buried completely in ash by the time John got there. He had been sitting there for a while, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's pretty funny.
I think she was probably wandering around.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe just trying to find the throne room. She has no idea where it is. So she talks to John, and she's just so like geeked out on the power that she doesn't even perceive the dark tone of this encounter. She's in another world, like totally oblivious to everything around her. When I was a girl, my brother told me it was made with 1,000 swords from Aegon's fallen enemies. And she's just like completely delusional, like in her own little world.
She has almost like a smile on her face.
Total smile.
Way.
She's just elated in ecstasy with the power that she's managed to achieve here. It's insane, and What do 1,000 swords look like in the mind of a little girl who can't even count to 20? I imagined a mountain of swords too high to climb. So many fallen enemies. You could only see the soles of Aegon's feet. So creepy. And Jon is just like not having any of this. He is here for a reason. And before he fulfills his duty, he's just going to confirm that she's a force truly evil.
She's truly gone dark side.
Yeah. So he gets straight down to business, and he's like, I saw them executing Lannister prisoners in the street. They said they were acting on your orders. And she's like, it was necessary. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Necessary?
Have you even been down there? Have you seen the little children that you've burned?
The babies burned up?
Children. Little children burned. And he like really yells.
They said they were acting on your orders.
It was necessary.
Necessary? Have you been down there? Have you seen children, little children burned?
Burned. Like if you go back and listen to it, he yells it.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I was like, wow, like he is about to lose his shit here. And she's like trying to rationalize it. I tried to make peace. She used their innocence as a weapon against me, thought it would cripple me. And Jon like brings up Tyrion. And she's like, he conspired behind my back with enemies. How have you treated people who've done the same to you, even when it broke your heart? Oh, foreshadowing like how he's about to have to do that same thing with you.
I noted that too.
Yep.
But also, like, it's true, like, you know, Janis Slynt and these people conspired behind his back and everything. And he like executed Janis Slynt on the spot, you know what I mean? And like executed Ollie and everything like that, even though he loved Ollie. You know, it's not the only time I'm going to bring up Ollie in this episode, interestingly. So, he urges her to forgive Tyrion, but she's just not having any of it. And this is when Jon, like, everything is going wrong here. You know what I mean? She's saying all the wrong things. She looks like a maniac, completely ignoring the gravity of what she's just done, killing 1 million people and all of this. And she's just reveling in her power. And things are not going the way Jon wanted them to, which is that she would convince him that she doesn't deserve to die, you know? He went to Tyrion knowing that Tyrion would push him to do the right thing, and he goes to Dany hoping that she can make him see that it's not the right thing, but she's unable to do that, you know? And he starts begging, like, you can forgive all of them, you know? Make them see they've made a mistake. Make them understand. Please, Dany, you know, he's like freaking out here.
She's like, we can't hide behind small mercies. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to kill this bitch.
Yeah, like, what is wrong with you?
She's like literally saying the world that she needs. And the world that she needs sounds crazy.
Yeah, the world we need.
Like the world that we need. Is,
yeah.
What it's built on is something that she created, but it's not real.
It's all fabricated in her mind, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she says that, like, to build what they need, we can't have it being built by men who are loyal to what we already have. You know, that's to defeat the purpose. And
so she's going to kill everybody.
Basically, yeah. And Jon's like, the world we need is a world of mercy. It has to be, you know, and she says, she tries to comfort him, it will be. It's not easy to see something that's never been before, you know, and she sounds like a lunatic, like a good world, you know, and he's like, how do you know what that is? How do you know it will be good? And she's like, because I know what is good, you know, and it's like, oh, so creepy.
And this is echoing what Tyrion said, is like, how can she think that what she does is not good when all we've ever done is like kind of feed that aspect of her and praise her for when she does this behavior.
Yeah, and this is also another crazy moment because she's like, because I know it's good, and so do you. She tells Jon. She obviously doesn't.
I'm not on the same page as you are, girlfriend.
Yeah, but her telling him here that he knows what is good is essentially her telling him, like convincing him that he's going to need to kill her, you know?
Oh, yes.
Which is just like the scene with Samwell telling Ollie that he knows what's good and what's right, even if other people can't see it, which is what had the effect of emboldening Ollie to kill Jon. So Dany is Sam here and Jon is Ollie, hilariously.
Oh, my God.
You know, in a total parallel to the other scene where Danny is basically convincing John to do this terrible thing, you know? And he's like, I don't know what's good. And because in his mind, what he's thinking is what's good is like having to kill her, you know? And he's like fighting it. And she's like, you do know, you've always known. And he's like, fuck, I'm gonna have to kill you. And this is when he brings up this is the last straw, basically. What about everyone else? All the other people who think they know what's good. And this is when Danny says they don't get to choose. Just like Tyrion said, the people of King's Landing didn't get to choose their fate. Super creepy as she's like smiling as she tells John they don't get choices.
Like we get to choose their fate.
Yeah, she's like a total control freak here. And
be with me.
Yeah, freedom is the freedom to choose for yourself. You know what I mean? And that's like the goal should be giving people power and autonomy and freedom. And yeah, be with me, she says. Build the new world with me. This is our reason. It's like Darth Vader.
Come with me, and we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
You know, except we can rule the 7 kingdoms as aunt and nephew.
And lovers.
Yeah, this is our reason. It has been since the beginning, since you were a little boy with a bastard's name and I was a little girl who couldn't count to 20. We do it together. We break the wheel together. It's true. And it's true. This is what they've both been geared for. She breaks she eliminates Cersei and that whole thing, and he finishes the job by eliminating her. And that has been their destiny since they were both little. Ned saved Jon so he could do this at this moment. You know, she came back so she could get rid of the Mad Queen that was already there, and Jon has to get rid of her because she's even worse. So they are tied together in
still filling the destiny too.
Yeah, from
yeah.
Yeah, fulfilling, 2 halves of the destiny to bring the new dawn, like you mentioned earlier. And now that the night has been defeated, now the fire is being defeated as well. And
you are my queen.
Yeah, he's like, for a brief moment there when he says, you are my queen now and always, I thought for a split second.
For half a second.
That
I was like,
love
no!
overpowered duty, and that it would have been the ultimate tragedy if he had given in to her at this moment instead of following through with what needed to be done, right? The death of duty to love. And
this really reminded me though, like when he actually starts kissing her and stabs her, it really reminded me of when Ramsay hugs Roose Bolton.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we just said the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah, I mentioned that on the live show. He totally she gets Roose Boltoned.
Oh, how funny. Yeah, it's like for like half a second, you don't know who got stabbed.
If you watch it back again, it's more clear upon second watch.
The second time
you can see his. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, Rachel. The first time I watched it, I was like, "What? Just who did what? How?" When you watch it the second time, it was like, oh, okay.
It was definitely more clear the second time, but in the first watch, I was like,
what's amazing about the first time watch is that feeling of. Who just killed who?
Just like with Roose and Ramsay. So awesome.
Yeah, like what just happened?
Yeah. Well, I noticed second watch, his body opens up and faces like away from her as he's kissing her, and you can see his right shoulder cock back as he reaches back and unsheathes his blade. And then he thrusts forward, and you can see his turns face towards her again and jams her with the thing. And it's so sad because like. And I think he really does love her, and he kisses her, and he means it in this moment. Like,
yeah,
he's like, "I love you. You'll always be my queen, like forever." But like, I have to do this. It's fucked, but it has to be done. And he kisses her and means it, and stabs her. And there's this crazy moment where like she reacts, and their kiss breaks, and she looks down, and at the moment where she looks down, where you realize that she's the one who's been stabbed.
Yeah.
And then she looks back up at him, and he kind of winces like you made me do this, you know what I mean? Like, and her eyebrows raise in response, like, oh my God, like you actually did that. And just like the nuances of this tandem performance.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, like,
I know.
oh my God.
I think I just did like everything that you just said with my face.
Yeah, it's so intense. Like, it was just a brilliant shared performance by these two actors here. Just really, really well done. The back and forth. He's like, the winds on his face and her reaction, like, you didn't have to, you know, and the second that her eyebrows raise in like a moment of realization and her face just like instantly goes blank. And so then it close-ups to her face as we start to see like Joffrey, blood spilling out of her nose and her mouth and sliding down the side of her face. And her face goes blank as she dies. And it seems like she was like struggling with a series of emotions at the end there, anger and sadness and the realization of just what was happening. And it was crazy, like the expression on her face as she's dying. But then it cuts to an epic side shot of John holding her limp body, just like in that piece of art. With stabbing Longclaw vertically down through her chest. But in this image, it's not Longclaw, it's his dagger. And it also mirrors the shot of him cradling Ygritte's dead body, like perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
Except this time it was John's choice. John was Ollie in this circumstance again, you know? John is Ollie as Samwell or Danny's convincing him to do what he knows is right. And then John is Ollie as Ollie killed Ygritte. Now John is killing Danny. It was like just so brutal, man. So insane.